So I'm going to show you something I've been hacking on for the little over a year now, and I called it Delta Trail with the intent of you're tracking changes across your infrastructure so that at any point in time you can look at what did my infrastructure look like before we released version 2, and then do like a Git-style compare of the resources that changed. What I've found is that most of the time when I run into a problem, it's because something changed in an unintended way. So this idea, like for this little product, whatever, this thing that I built, it came from I was managing about, I was installing SAP for an organization that doesn't like Anthropic very much right now, in the cloud, and we would do updates and it would turn out a security group changed. Well, we have 10 AWS accounts. We have hundreds of EC2 instances launched. It becomes difficult to track things like that down. So I was like, well, if we just collect the data, I guess I should move the slide. So anyways, so I should basically scrape the AWS APIs, land it in a format that I can quickly query across. So what I do is scrape the AWS APIs, land it in DuckDB, and then stick it in S3, and it all starts out as Parquet. So you could mount the S3 things and use whatever tool you want to do whatever, but I then plugged Claude into this whole equation, and things started getting really interesting because Claude's aware of things like SOC 2 compliance, security best practices. And if I tell it about my infrastructure, then it can tell me how I align with it or don't align with it. It also can tell me about budgets and cost of my workload that I'm running. And so this is basically how it works. So we collect, me and the system was the we, I guess. We collect 68 AWS services, so route tables, security groups, IAM roles, users, VPCs, all the goodies. There's a whole bunch of other services that I really didn't care about, so I didn't even bother bringing them in. We take a snapshot of it, stick it in S3, and then there's an API that exposes each one of those resources. And so I told Claude to use those APIs however it deems appropriate for the prompt that you're sending to it, and then you have some other reporting capabilities. So I'm going to jump into showing you what this thing looks like. Can y'all see that okay? Yeah, good enough, I suppose. So right now I have it built out like a SaaS-based system. So there's this idea of multi-tenant. And what you're looking at here when you land on the dashboard page is a quick AI summary. So after we do the collection process, we ask Claude to look at the previous database, DuckDB database, and then just do queries across the two to discover what's changed. And so right here, I can get a quick snapshot of I'm managing one AWS account. I'm in one region. There was 19 changes, and I'm managing 257 resources in my account. And so the whole system is built on EKS. So it's all in AWS, running an EKS cluster. And I'm, I guess, eating my own dog food. I'm pointing this system at the system that it's deployed. And so right here, I just give a quick breakdown. So the other thing I did is sort of grouped concepts that are in AWS. So you have things like networking. And so we're talking about target groups, network interfaces, those types of things. Because the AWS console can be a little quirky to navigate. So so just sort of consolidated some of those ideas. And we have this idea of taking snapshots. Yep. And yeah, so you can just track your snapshots, right? So if you wanted to take, like you had a snapshot, we're on version 1, we write a whole bunch of code, we make infrastructure changes, whatever, we deploy it out. We could take another snapshot, it would collect it. We went through that. And then the dashboard would show you that. You can also, there's a UI for it just because I feel like people wanted to, or people want to see these things. It's sort of like traditional. I'll show you the AI bit. And then I think that'll explain some things of what I'm talking about. But you have the ability to see that network interfaces 2 were added, 5 were changed. I can see 2 were added, 3 were changed. I can see 2 target groups were modified. I can select them and I can see sort of like a Git-style, like, well, what actually changed? Well, you changed the health endpoint. So if something isn't starting up and it keeps rolling, well, this could have something to do with it. And then as sort of time progressed, I was like, well, it'd be easy enough just to show like an overall security posture of, you know, what security groups am I exposing, you know, like to the open internet? Do I have wildcard trust policies? So on and so forth. So some high level things that you're probably monitoring when it comes to like security, especially if you're in the compliance world, you need to understand these things. What you're seeing down here is I've also built in a penetration testing system that's all AI driven. So I've used Zap and things like that for pen testing, for like OWASP, vulnerability detection, cross-site scripting, SQL injection. Well, I basically gave Claude a browser and credentials, and if you have 2-factor authentication, you can give it the key to generate the 6-digit code, and Claude will log in, scrape your website. It knows all about OWASP too. So I'll show you that in a minute here. So that's a security feature. And so I'll go ahead and launch this. So Frank is the greatest dog ever, or he was at least, and is the name of my agent. What's happening right now is a native-based pod is being spun up, and it's being injected with your JOT token, and it also has the context of your tenant being injected into it. So like your kube config, your AWS account information. So Frank, you had a question. Native, yeah, with a K. Yeah. Is it K native or just native? I'm not sure, but yeah. K native, okay, yeah. So K native pod is being spun up there, and it's short-lived, so I can scale down to 0 when this session is done, right? So at this point, I just have an MCP server, and I can ask Frank things like, what's changed in the infra? And it'll think about what it is, it'll reason about what is it that I'm actually asking it. And it's actually building a graph, that's why you see this funny thing. But it'll show me the changes that I've built, and React is the thing that's making it flicker back and forth like this. But it'll give me, it's hit the APIs and it's discovered what's there, right? It'll go deeper too. So I can ask it things about, you know, so like, show me a table of my EC2s. Then it'll generate a view sort of on demand for you if you wanted to visualize this different. It has different markdown gates, so it can generate like a HTML table, or like you just saw, it can generate a bar graph, it can generate a pie chart, all these things. I guess I probably should have gone into the configuration aspect of this first. So when I set this thing up, it's all based of the pods that are running have a URSA service account role attached to it. On your AWS account side, you have a trust policy that lets my pod assume that role into your account. And so based on the trust policy that you give me on your side is what capabilities Frank ends up having. So if you want to give it full admin control, it can then spin up EC2s. It can change your security group, all that stuff. And that's just based off of the Sonnet 4.6 model knows all of those commands to do that stuff. I should have also shown you, we'll look at it later once we sort of get through this, but you can ask things like, what's the cost of those? So I can ask it things about how much would this workload change. I can do forecasts. I can look over a time range. I could graph it out over a time range too. Yeah. So the other thing, here's the cost breakdown for my workload here. The other thing that you can also configure in here is it'll manage your Kubernetes workloads. Yeah.
Said that there's the pointed out it's a bot account. There's things that your bot or even your account can talk to whoever else account database.
That's exactly right.
He said could give it all the permissions to your bot, do like actions at the other account, or is it most like read those APIs?
Yeah, so that's really like up to you, right? So the pods that are running in Delta Trails have a role. And then on your side, you establish a trust policy that says this role can assume this role, and whatever you mark on that role for it to be able to do, it's allowed to do. So minimum is like, you need to give me read-only or I can't look at any of your infrastructure. And read-only is really all I need to do all of these things, right? I just need to hit the API and then do an inventory discovery. It gives me the capabilities to do the change detections, right? And so it can detect, and it also supports multiple accounts too. So I could ask it, I don't have multiple accounts here, but I've tested it. You can say in this account, what's changed, in that account, what's, yeah.
Maybe a test or example account stage.
That's right. Yeah, so if you had a pre-production and a staging environment or whatever, say, what is different in staging than in production? Oh, you don't have this route table entry or whatever the case may be. That's no, keep them. We'll keep it open because I don't have much of a presentation prepared for you, and I have 5 slides, I think. So,
like rewrite API stuff.
Yeah, whatever you choose to give. Yeah.
But if you wanted it to do actions like, oh, I don't like that these pods are running in my account. Don't kill those pods.
Yeah.
But those are like network level things.
Yeah. Yeah. But, well, I don't have that set up, or even like VPN connectivity internally. So to solve that, you would install this like in your enclave, in your environment, and then give it access there. Yeah, exactly. I thought about it, but could it? Sure. Yeah. I mean, it could do it a number of ways, right? Like using systems manager and send commands to it and get responsive back if they were like talking up to, they had the SSM agent running on it. We're reporting back up. I can talk back, and Claude knows exactly how to do that. Yep.
To make kind of auditing functionality, like who or what made the change, and would it extend to like code change? Like, oh, give me the PR that made this change.
Yeah, so so Delta Trails has like a very scoped focus of like detection and stuff, and I've extended it for another client that I'm working with to add tools to like have Git repository access, to have Jenkins pipeline access, and make those same correlations, and you can run it all the way through through the infrastructure as well. And I guess I'll do this too. Is tell me about the yeah. So like this session right now is K native. Thanks for the clarification there. I just work at home and I don't get out much, I guess. So this is a like personally scoped MCP server like for you, and it has the contents of the configuration that you've given it. So in the configuration setting down here, you can upload a kube config. And then it uses that kube config in the container that's running the MCP server. And of course, like Claude knows how to, yeah, so this is the Delta Trails EKS cluster. We just asked it, tell me about the cluster overview. There's my version. I'm running on 4 nodes, pods and namespace, or here's my namespace. Oh, these are my pods by namespace, excuse me. Things to flag, these are some like settings I should probably take a look at, adding these bits here. And yeah, so it has like full kubectl access, yeah. But once again, scope to your organization.
How do you differentiate in your target environments? Like, there are bits things that I would consider static and structured, but I also have a lot of things in my environment that are ephemeral. And like, if ephemeral stuff, you might have like obviously like those growing, shrinking, whatever all the time.
Yeah.
Those, if you grow, shrink, these
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, but they end up as white. You handle that?
I don't, and we have that. So like SAP uses Bosch under the covers, and so Bosch is actually like, hey, give me another node, give me this and that. That stuff, like, I really don't care about so much, you know, like. But when you change route tables and you change security groups and you change IAM roles and permissions, I care about that. And when you start adding IAM roles, and there shouldn't be another IAM role or user there, I care about those things though, right? So the EC2 problem, yeah, it's a problem, and it's really just something I'm just like, I don't care about that, you know? Yeah, it becomes noise, and like it would in your changes, right? Like, you know, I had 3 EC2s and then I run it again and I have 30 or whatever, and it's like, I don't really care about that. But yeah, it is noise. Yeah. I don't know that there's a great way to solve it, but if you have an idea, you should tell me because I'll just poke it in here.
Here's any EC2 node that got started outside of it.
Like, yeah. Yeah. Right. Or I can say like, what EC2s don't have a tag, or, you know, I could discover things like untagged ones or ones that aren't tagged like this. And, it's basic. It's so let you peek behind the curtain or whatever. I don't care. It's just Sonnet 4.6, the model that's being driven here. So like the things that it knows and understands are what the things you're seeing here. And so all 5 have tags except for, right? So you could sort of drive it that way, I suppose. Yeah, keep coming.
So the chat interface with the API is looking for the traffic, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if I have decided that thing isn't working, you might want to go like, and now monitor the step. Like, is that a thing?
It doesn't do it today. Yeah, but what do you mean by monitor this thing indefinitely?
Like, if I'm asking about, hey, are there any analysis? It might tell me, at this point in time, yes, there is this one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, tell me what's happening.
Oh, so like more like monitoring of the infrastructure. Yeah, I haven't quite gotten there yet. So it's a yeah, like an autonomous agent that's just running and I set it off. Yeah. I'd like to even be able to give you tools for things that are accessible, Jenkins or what other tool you may want to come up with. So that's sort of the gist of Frank, and like the I won't spend all the time here because there's one I'd like to show you the pen testing bit. But go ahead. Yeah, did you have?
See, this is relying on quad skills in Amazon and Kubernetes.
Yeah. So like I'm eating my own dog food in the sense that like the Kubernetes cluster that's running, I've configured it to like monitor itself. And so that's, what we're like interacting with here where we see change detection. I can ask questions about it. How much did I spend last month? How much am I spending this month? So I like,
putting like the snapshots, the audit here and getting it back.
yeah, so I actually have a standalone, I call it the collections API that will pull the DuckDB files into it to do, like, it understands which two DuckDB files it needs to like look at to do the comparison. And then I do some sort of static analysis like right after I run. So I use Ray. Yeah, okay. So I use Ray to like basically schedule the data collections and I get all the fault tolerance and all that good stuff and the retry and backoffs and all that stuff. That's built in. So I just say, run this job, Ray, and it takes care of landing all of our data there for us. And then I do some like AI summary bits at the end and I'll do like change detection so I can get at some of that quick. But I mean, so at the end of the day, this thing's like more of an analytics style system than like like a fast API where, I'm booking a website or a hotel room or whatever, you know what I mean? You're looking at data and potentially a lot of data. I have 4 EC2s here, but really the DuckDB files don't get that big. Yeah. That's the general gist of it there. So that's talking to Frank. So configuration, I probably should have shown you this before we did the other. It might have made some more sense. But so I have one AWS account set up. And when we're talking about the IAM stuff, this goes through just giving you like a summary of like whatever permissions you give the role that we're going to assume are the permissions that Frank is going to get. The same goes for your kube config. Whatever you allow the kube config to have, Frank can do it too, right? So delete pods, delete namespaces, whatever, right? And then I just generate just some code to help you quickly onboard. I'll give you some AWS CloudFormation stack. There's some Terraform for you to use as well if that floats your boat. And then you just set up the AWS account. Kubernetes, this is just upload a kube config. Can have multiple contexts and Claude will be able to switch contexts based off the kube config that you give to it. Nothing fancy here. These are just like all inputs into the MCP server and the Knative pod that'll get spun up. And that also has your JOT token so that you can talk to the collections API to get the differences. I can get what's the latest one or this or that. It has access to your AWS account. So if Claude's like, well, this would be better because I want to look right now. So it could even look at right now compared to your last snapshot compared to previous snapshot as well. Let's look at, so I recently just added pen testing in here for the purposes of, we just rolled out a new version. I want to do a pen test of it, or I've got multiple AWS accounts. I want to do a pen test on this environment before we promote it to production. So you can set up, I'm calling them scan targets. There's things to go and run and look at. I have a scan history. So these are scans that completed. And should we look at it? We'll look at a live one. So anyways, you can look at the history of a scan, and it's doing OWASP vulnerability scanning. It's not using a tool like that. I actually wrote it, Claude and I wrote it ourselves, where I put Claude in an MCP server and I say, here's Selenium in a Chrome browser, and here's what I want you to go and discover. I want you to crawl the website, and it knows how to log in. If I give it the two-factor authentication key, it can generate the 6-digit code and log in with two-factor authentication. And I don't have to, like with tools like Zap and stuff, you have to say, here's the login page, and here's the HTML selector for the user field, and here's the HTML selector for the password field, and here's this. You don't have to do any of that. Claude just goes using Selenium to look at the source, determine what it is, and then just log in and then just crawl your site. And so what it does is it's configurable, but it'll cycle 100 times. It'll just keep crawling, and it has nested parameters that are built into it, and it'll generate you an HTML-based report. You can download it as PDF too. And one of the interesting things about the pen test tool is that, like static analysis tools, they just state the facts and stick to that. Like you have cross-site scripting, and I discovered it on this page. In this context, Claude understands the context of your website. It knows you're a banking website. It knows you're a whatever website. It'll determine that because I've asked it to go ahead and make that determination to see if there's any things that are like outside of like OWASP or cross-site scripting that you maybe need to think about, right? Like you have this kind of site and you probably shouldn't put that information out, that sort of a thing, right? And while it's doing the iterations, and we can watch it do that, it will take, oh, and here's the other thing that it does too, is not only will it find a problem like a auth token hard-coded in production JavaScript, it'll tell you how to remediate the problem as well. And it'll also take a screenshot of how it made that determination and put it into the report for you there. So the links down here, they're just you can look at your infrastructure maybe in a more streamlined way than logging into your AWS account and finding these things. You have access to it here. I prefer just to ask Frank how that goes down. If we want, we can, and then you have some other settings here as well, just your account information, utilization, team members. You can invite team members, give them roles and permissions. And then if we wanted to run a scan, if you wanted to see, I have a couple websites that I put up that are like purposefully flawed. I can select whether I want to do a passive scan of it, an active scan, or a full, and Claude will try to make changes if you do like a full scan or an active scan. It'll look for cross-site scripting. It'll look for SQL injection attacks. It'll actually try to perform those things. And a passive scan, it won't look for any of that. It's more just the OWASP stuff. So if I do a full scan, I can select that, hit next. You need to authorize that you have access to even do this on the website. Right now, it's, well, you got to check a box, but there is an audit history on our servers about this. And so I can launch a scan, and you get a live stream of the scanning that's going on, so you get to actually watch. So this starts a Kubernetes job that has an MCP server in it, and inside of the MCP tool chain is Selenium, the Chrome driver, the credentials for the scan, and then it just system level prompts and tool level prompts to say, these are the things you need to be looking for: OWASP things, cross-site scripting things, SQL injection, no SQL injection. And what you get to do is you get to follow along while it discovers things and does those things. And at the end of the day, what it does is just output. It outputs what I showed you here, or actually this one's still active. Sorry, the one before that. So it'll just output you a report like this when it gets done running through. So I think that's the end of my show. I think that's all I got for you.